Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Holy Moses Take a Look, the podcast about terrible books. I'm Sheena St. James, joined as always by my lovely assistant, Paul.
Hey.
And today we're going to be reading chapters 8 and 9 of Irene Iddesleigh. I know I said last week that we were just going to do chapter 8, but I did some math, and if we want to be finished by Halloween, then we've got to follow a schedule, because we'll have just barely enough time to do that. And a couple of the chapters are much longer than others, 13, 14 pages, so those are going to get their own week. But this time around we've got a little bit shorter, not a lot, but a little bit. And we're going to go with that. Because on Halloween I want to do a special where we do something a little different. Could do something special on Halloween. The best of days. So, when we last left our protagonists, when we were here last, God, what happened? Sir John and Lady Dunfern, well, Sir John and Irene, were married. The Dilworths were broke.
Oh, the Dilworths disappeared.
Yeah, they just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Oh, we sold all our property, and now we are poor and destitute.
Yeah. I love that. How it's just like, oh yeah, we're all fabulously wealthy, and then they're like, oh wait, no, we're not. And so they sell their houses, and now they're just like in the poorhouse or something, and they're gone. We don't know where they've gone to. They're just gone.
Left on a boat forever.
Yeah. And when Irene and John get back from their honeymoon, they didn't know. So, like, the house was all dark because it had been sold, and Irene fainted. Which is kind of stupid, but whatever.
Well, women don't need a reason to faint, like a plausible reason in old literature. You know, they can just be sad and die of that. You know,
I know. They'll die because they're feeling poorly or something.
Because women are frail and weak all the time, even when it makes no sense.
Even when written by a woman.
Even when written by a woman.
Obviously not the case. Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 8, and this is, as always, a blind read. I have not read any of it yet. The only reason I know the chapter lengths is by looking at the table of contents, which I didn't think to do last time around. Don't know why. So, haven't read this before. You're hearing it as I'm discovering it. So here we go. Chapter 8. A word of warning tends to great advantage when issued reverently from the lips of the estimable. Oh boy, there's a start. It serves to allay the danger pending on reticence, and substantiates in a measure the confidence which has hitherto existed between the parties concerned. Again, a judicious advice, extended to the stubborn and self-willed, proves futile, and incurs the further malice and fiery indignation of the regardless, the reckless, and the uncharitable. Oh, God. Oh, Amanda. You ridiculous person, you. My God.
She has a nice little formula there where she, but I can't even make sense of what it even is this time, of what she even...
I'm not sure what she's trying to say.
I mean, I don't know. It gets boring if we just, like, say, oh, I don't know what this means every time. But,
well, I mean, maybe if she was clearer, we would know what she meant.
It's just...
I mean, most of the time you can kind of figure it out, but this is just... I feel like she's being preachy, but I can't really tell what about.
This is even more impenetrable than her usual opening paragraphs.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. This is
the thing. She, like, presents all these ridiculous attempts at figurative language and then does nothing to tie them into the actual narrative.
No. Like, she doesn't put a lot of effort in on that front.
It feels
like she just kind of presents a thing. It's like how a lot of really bad TV shows will start with, like, a quote, and then they'll just have the show, and the quote will only be, like, marginally related. You know? I mean, some shows do that well, like Grimm manages that pretty well, but very few others I've seen do it without being just pretentious garbage. But this is pretentious garbage. It feels like like some old matronly school mistress saying, "Oh, word of warning, blah blah blah." you know, but it's just so, like, she's so wrapped up in her own head that it doesn't make sense.
Anyway.
Let's
stop chewing her out and keep reading.
Yeah. Lady Dunfern began now to grow both cross and careless, and seemed not to interest herself so much, since her propositions were so emphatically denounced by her husband, concerning the management of the household staff. She grew daily more retired, and often has her conduct been so preposterously strange as to cause alarm both to Sir John and all over whom he had immediate control. Oh, that's clumsy. That is very clumsy. Also, why is that in present tense? Often has her conduct. I'm thinking that's probably just a typo, but oh my god. That's a high schooler mistake.
I don't understand.
Okay, so it says she grew daily more retired, right? So she's lazier. And often has her conduct been so preposterously strange as to cause alarm, both to Sir John and all over whom he had immediate control. So that's John and the staff are freaked out because she's been bizarre.
Yeah, but it's not present tense.
No, it's often has her conduct, not had her conduct, or was her conduct.
No, that makes sense.
I don't think so, because
it's a clumsy way of phrasing it, but it's just a weird way of putting the sentence together. But it still makes sense. Like, her conduct has been preposterously strange. It's just a weird way of saying that.
I know, but that's not a past tense thing. That means it is now, and it has been. Like, I have, as of late, been doing this and that and this and that, okay? Or he's been strange lately. You don't say, Bob has been walking his dog 5 years ago, She could have said, and often her conduct was so preposterously strange.
No, I still think it makes sense. Like, not in...
Because has is a...
Not in a way that, like, means anything, but, like, I don't think she's changed tense in the middle there.
Well, then she just doesn't know what words mean or something, because using has in that context means, like, implies a continuation. Implies past into present tense.
Anyway, we're splitting hairs. In any case...
Yeah, that's a little foible.
Lady Dunfern's being a smelly girl and is keeping herself out of business.
Yeah. Indeed, 3 months of married life scarcely elapsed until she cast a glow of despair within the breast which too often heaved for her with true piety and love. And what was meant by such strange conduct on her part, her husband often wondered. Only the mighty cessation of friendship caused by the flight of her beloved guardians, never attributing such silence and stubbornness to any fault he justly committed. It's like, what did I do? But just the glow of despair.
This writing gives me a glow of despair.
Yes, the duped husband, when being fished for with the rod of seeming simplicity and concealed character, and quickly caught on the hook of ingenuity with deception for a bait, was altogether unable to fathom its swallowing meaning. Oh my god! So he's a fish. A fish in love with a hand.
This is the very definition of tortured metaphors.
I know. It's so bad. It's like... And this is one of those metaphors where it's like, she could have kept the basic concept and then just not dragged it on. Like, she just keeps beating that dead horse, It's like, stop describing things so much. You're not helping. It's not any clearer. Was he not, therefore, to be sympathized with, who so charitably extended the hand of honor and adoration to the offspring of unknown parents, and placed her in position equal to any lady of title, and boasted parentage within the bounty of County Kent? Should Sir John Dunfern not have been almost worshipped by a wife whose binding duty it was to reverence her husband in all things pertaining to good? No, he should not. And revere is the word you're looking for, not reverence. Reverence is a noun, not a verb. To reverence her husband, that's... I mean, that could just be archaic, but that doesn't sound right. To revere would be... Ugh. Worship. Ugh. Gross. No doubt this would have been so had he gained the affections he imagined he possessed, but later on he would inevitably be made aware of matters which as of yet only bordered on supposition. Day after day, Lady Dunfern pined like a prisoner in her boudoir, and scarcely ever shared a word with the great and good Sir John, who many times wished in former days that she had occupied his home in all its joys. What?
God forbid they, like, talk directly about their problems with each other.
I know. It's so bad. You know what this reminds me of almost is, like... I feel like this is based off of some personal problem that Ms. Ross had. Like, maybe somebody that she sought after, some rich guy that she wanted, like, her friend got him instead, and then was just like... he's an asshole or something, you know? It's just like, be grateful, you bitch, or something. That's what I'm feeling here, you know? Is this kind of, you know, what's wrong with her being unhappy? This guy's rich as sticks. And he's so good. Like that's what it feels like. It's just this heavy-handed, preachy tone.
She's trying. I mean, credit where credit is due. It's like she is trying. Like she wasn't before, but she is now trying to make us care about these sad, weird people.
I think she was trying before too. I mean, she would mention how sad they are.
Yeah, but like now it's for real. Now it's like, oh, the duped husband. Oh, and she was so sad she pined like a prisoner. Oh,
I guess, but it's like
it's like
last
she's
second,
not up.
Though she's half-assing it.
I feel like here the language is less obfuscating. Like it feels.
Sure, but it's still purple and bad.
Oh well, no, I know. I'm not disputing that. It's just there's more direct description of their emotions. But it still comes off as weak because of the rest of it all the confused metaphors. Anyway,
the hook of ingenuity with deception for a bait. That's the point of bait. Of course, it's a deception. Okay. She formed an inward resolution that if prohibited from enjoying life, to which she was accustomed at Dilworth Castle, she would make her husband, whom she knew too well made her his idol, feel the smart by keeping herself aloof from his caresses as much as possible.
So she deliberately makes herself miserable.
Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't let her go out. He gets, like, all sulky and gross and bullshit when she goes out. Because he's Mr. Introvert. And she's like, I don't want you to go out so much. And she's like, I'm bored. I need to, like, converse with people and go to parties and stuff that rich people do. I need to socialize. And he's just like, no, I'm a giant baby. And...
She is a giant baby.
No, he's a giant baby.
Oh, right, okay.
She's a hand with an ass.
Whereas John is a giant fish baby.
Yeah, he's a giant fish baby. I'm going to draw that too. Often would he be found half asleep in deep thought, not having any friend of immediate intimacy in whom he could confide or trust, or to whom he could unbosom the conduct of his wife, whose actions now he was beginning to detest. No, really? You mean you're starting to resent her being aloof and unpleasant? Who would have thought? The thoughts of disappointment and shame were building for themselves a home of shelter within him, disappointment on account of cherished hopes which unmistakably were crushed to atoms beneath the feet of her who was the sole instigation of their origin, shame in all probability lest the love he sought and bought with the price of self might not be his after all, and may still be reserved against his right and kept for another much less worthy. The little jealous spark again revived and prompted him to renew its luster, which had been hidden for a length of time beneath the cloud of dread so silently awaiting the liberty of covering the hill of happiness. Ah, God. That's
She
so
keeps
purple,
using
it's
the whole
practically
X of...
Grimace.
She keeps using the whole X of Y kind of formula for figurative language, and it's beginning to, like, get on my tits.
And it's alliterative, which only
It's
makes it
like-
worse.
It's like, you're not writing a children's book. Come on.
Also, there's just a random exclamation point in here. Because here we have, with the price of self might not be his after all, exclamation point, and may still be reserved against his right, and so on and so on. Like,
It's probably archaic.
No, that one's just
What?
wrong.
No, it's like 19th century literature. It doesn't
I know,
treat like sentence construction and punctuation the same way we do.
I know, but
I'm like,
exclamation points have never really, as far as I know, belonged in the middle of a sentence, unless used after an interjection.
I'm still willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, that one is an error. Quietly ruminating over his wife's manner before marriage, about which he was compelled through observation to demand an explanation, and pondering carefully her strange and silent habit since it, he became resolved to probe the wound that had swollen so enormously as to demand immediate relief. Tell you what else has swollen so enormously as to demand immediate relief.
Whoa. That was a dick joke.
It was a dick joke, because dignified wanks. That's the thing. It's the name of the game. Ringing furiously for a maid, he handed her a note, to be delivered without delay to Lady Dunfern, the nature of which might well be suspected. Be that as it may, its contents were instrumental in demanding immediate attention. Soon after its delivery, a slight tap was heard at the door of Sir John's study, this room being always his favourite haunt, where he sat beside a bright and glowing fire, engaged in sullen thought, and with an imperious "Come in!" he still remained in the same thinking posture, nor was he aware, for fully 5 minutes or so, that his intruder was no other than she whom he so recently ordered into his presence. Who did he think it was? He sat there for 5 minutes, and she stood there for 5 minutes, doing nothing.
Why is she trying to surprise us? Like, this is like thinking that his intruder is, and we think, oh,
Who
and
could
then
it be?
it's like,
What do you think? It's so annoying. Gazing up in a manner which startled the cold-hearted woman not a little, he requested her, quote, to have a seat right opposite his, unquote, to which she instantly complied. At this moment the snow was wafting its flaky handfuls thickly against the barred enclosure of Dunfern Mansion, and chilly as nature appeared outside, it was similarly so indoors for the fond and far-famed husband of Lord Dilworth's charge.
This is how we know it's meant to be a tense and sad scene, because the weather's bad.
I guess. But I just, wafting its flaky handfuls. When I think handfuls, I'm thinking like a snowball. So I'm just thinking of like clumps of snow just against the window. Just blop.
It's like
in clumps.
Yeah, because like a handful is not... Because snow doesn't come down that thick.
No. It comes down in flakes. Little flakes.
Like, at least not thick handfuls. Like, if it's coming down plentifully, then yeah, I suppose it can be quite thick, but like handfuls.
Yeah, it doesn't really come in clumps, does it? I mean, it's just sort of, it just falls densely.
I don't think Amanda has ever seen snow.
How could that be? She's British.
Yeah, but I'm clutching at straws to shit on her.
Well, it's even worse if she did see snow and just didn't know how to describe it.
Well, she doesn't know how to describe anything. This book is testament to that.
I live in a place where it doesn't snow. Ever. I haven't seen snow in years. Literal years. And even I know how it works. So, matters had appeared so unpleasant and altogether bewildering of late that Sir John formed a resolution to bring them to a crisis. Poor word choice, but okay. Looking fully into the face that seemed so lovely just now, with the dainty spots of blazing ire enlivening the pale cheeks of creeping sin, Sir John began. Oh my God. Irene, if I may use such familiarity, you're married! Why wouldn't you use familiarity? Oh my God, you've been married for 3 freaking months and you can't be bothered to use your wife's own first name? Really? I mean, maybe it's just a sign of, today, youth these days, or some other old person nonsense. But, nowadays, couple's been married for 3 freaking months after courting for that long. If a couple's angry at each other, you're more likely to get a, look, bitch, or something, Or, God, why you gotta be such an ass all the time? Or something like that, they won't even bother addressing you properly. I mean, and that's for dysfunctional people like this, admittedly. But if I may use familiarity, it's stupid. Ugh. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
It's just... yeah.
I've summoned you hither, it may be, to undergo a stricter examination than your present condition probably permits. The fuck? But knowing as you should, my life must be miserable under this growing cloud of unfathomed dislike, I became resolved to end, if within my power, such contentious and unladylike conduct as that practised by you towards me of late. It is now quite 6 months, yea, weary months, since I shielded you from open penury and insult, which were bound to follow you, as well as your much-loved protectors, who sheltered you from the pangs of penniless orphanage, and during these 6 months, which naturally should have been the pet period of nuptial harmony, it has proved the hideous period of howling dislike. Really? He's gonna bring up money? Really? Saying you should be grateful. I saved you from being poor. What an ass.
He's a rich guy, of course he's gonna bring up money.
Eyes you see him tinged with slightly snowy tufts, the result of stifled sorrow and care concerning you alone. There's one way to say your hair is going white with stress.
Yeah,
I am tinged with slightly snowy tufts.
It's like, that's too adorable. Like, it probably isn't snowy tufts. It's more like
ugly streaks.
Damp, dusty clumps.
Clumps. Yeah. Snowy tufts.
Snowy tufts. It makes him sound like Santa Claus, but a bad Santa Claus.
Okay.
Naughty Santa Claus.
And on the memorable day of our alliance, as you are well aware, that black and glossy locks of glistening glory crowned my brow. There dwelt then, just 6 months this day, no trace of sorrow, nor smothered woe, no variety of colour where it is, and shall be so long as I exist. No furrows of grief could there be traced upon my visage, but alas, I feel so changed now, and why? Because I have dastardly and doggedly been made a tool of treason in the hands of the traitorous and unworthy. I was enticed to believe that an angel was always hovering around my footsteps when moodily engaged in resolving to acquaint you of my great love and undying desire to place you upon the highest pinnacle possible of praise and purity within my power to bestow. God, I'm starting to hate him so much.
This is an interesting way to make amends with your wife by, berating her.
Mm-hmm. And saying, oh, I've been so loving, when she really hasn't. He hasn't done anything.
He hasn't made any attempts to resolve the problem, in the entire 6 months that he's lost his hair.
Gotten snowy tufts.
It's yeah.
So shitty. Nobody says
Snowy
that.
tufts.
I hope he gets eaten by a crocodile in this chapter.
Yeah. Well, no one says any of the stuff that he's saying.
I know,
it's
but,
just
oh my God.
how many paragraphs are we in this monologue? 4, 3.
That was
3. A lot of this could have just been said in 3 sentences, maybe 4.
Yeah. I was led to believe that your unbounded joy and happiness were never at such a par as when sharing them with me. Was I falsely informed of your ways and worth? Was I duped to ascend the ladder of liberty, the hill of harmony, the tree of triumph, and the rock of regard? And when wildly manifesting my act of ascension, was I to be informed of treading still in the valley of defeat? Oh my God, why does she keep doing this? This blank of blank with alliterative words. It's so awful. So awful.
It's this is all at the expense of people talking normally. It's just... And it's here's an idea. Maybe your wife's depressed, and you've just been, selfishly, blanking them.
Am I, who for nearly 40 years was idolized by a mother of untainted and great Christian bearing, to be treated now like a slave? What? Why and for what am I thus dealt with? Am I to foster the opinion that you treat me thus on account of not sharing so fully in your confidence as it may be another? Or can it be imaginative that you've reluctantly only shared with me, which I have bought and paid for fully? Bought and paid for, and he's complaining about being treated like a slave?
Oof.
Wow. What
He's
a dick.
He's a big old bastard.
Yeah, he sucks. Can it be that your attention has ever been, or is still, attracted by another who, by some artifice or another, has the audacity to steal your desire for me and hide it beneath his pillaged pillow of poverty, there to conceal it until demanded with my ransom? What the fuck is he talking about?
Wow, he shit. That's some nice crapping on poor people there.
I know, what an ass.
Pillow of poverty.
Pillaged pillow of poverty.
It's like, oh, how dare you have feelings for poor people? Oh.
Yeah. It's like it doesn't even bother him that there's someone else. It bothers him that the someone else might be poor. Like, really, dude? Speak, Irene, wife, woman. Do not sit in silence and allow the blood that boils in my veins to ooze through cavities of unrestrained passion and trickle down to drench me in its crimson hue. Dude, what? Is he just gonna start spontaneously bleeding? Is he gonna have stigmata?
She's I love that she's written it this way instead of saying who said what, because it's because looking at these paragraphs and the way that this is formatted, it was hard to tell who's speaking what until I read it.
Oh,
but
I don't know,
now it's quite clear that this is all Mr. Dunfern.
Speak, I implore you, for my sake, and act no more as the deceitful Duchess of Nantes, who, when taken to task by the great Napoleon for refusing to dance with him at a state ball, replied, "You honored me too highly," acting the hypocrite to his very face. Are you doing likewise? What kind of...
And, like, meanwhile, Irene's like, how the fuck do you remember that?
Yeah.
I forgot that as soon as I said it.
Acting the hypocrite was very... Here Sir John, whose flushed face, swollen temples, and fiery looks were the image of indignation, restlessly awaited her reply. Wow. Okay.
Like, you wouldn't have to be this angry if you, like, nipped this in the bud 6 months ago, dickhead. Come on.
Lady Dunfern began now to stare her position fully in the face. On this interview, she thought, largely depended on her future welfare, if viewed properly. Should she make her husband cognizant of her inward feelings, matters were sure to end very unsatisfactorily. These she kept barred against his entrance in the past, and she was fully determined should remain so now, until forced from their home of refuge by spirited action. Let it be thoroughly understood. What?
It's just that last paragraph. It felt more like a historical document. It's like God forbid we be invested in how, like, Lady Dunfern feels after being, like, berated.
Very clinical.
By like just this giant asshole. You know, God forbid we get to know how Lady Dunfern feels. It's just now, and Lady Dunfern knew that she had to do this and this and that and the other. Oh.
Let it be thoroughly understood that Lady Dunfern was forced into a union she never honestly countenanced. She was almost compelled, through glittering polish of Lady Dilworth put on matters, to silently resign the hand of one whose adoration was amply returned, and enter into a contract which she could never properly complete. All she could now do was plunge herself into the lake of evasion, and answer him as best she could. Ugh, we know she doesn't love him. Stop saying it. It's like The Room. Sir and husband, she said, with great nervousness at first, you have summoned me hither to lash your rebuke unmercifully upon me, provoked, it may be, by underhand intercourse.
What?
You accordingly, in the course of your remarks, fail not to tamper with a character which as yet defies your scathing criticism. Only this week have I been made the recipient of news concerning my deceased parents. They died?
Oh no.
Well, gee, thanks for telling us. Of whom I never before
awful.
obtained the slightest clue, and armed with equality, I am in position fit to treat some of your stingy remarks with the scorn they merit. What the fuck? Wow. Okay, so they're dead now, I guess.
It's nice to know.
Yeah, like, that's out of nowhere. Out of freaking nowhere. Okay, you may not already be aware of the fact that I, whom you insinuate you wrested from beggary, am the only child of the late Colonel Iddesleigh, who fell a victim to a gunshot wound inflicted by the hand of his wife, who had fallen into the pit of intemperance. Yes, Earl Pedon's daughter was his wife and my mother, and only that this vice so actuated her movements, I might still have lent to society the object it dare not now claim, and thereby would have shunned the iron rule of being bound down to exist for months at a time, within such a small space of the world's great bed. What the fuck?
Okay, that's the second half of that paragraph I didn't get, but oh my god, character development. Like, we have an actual idea of where Irene Iddesleigh came from. This is the shit that could have been nice to know in the early paragraphs. Early chapters. Yeah. Like, this has no bearing on the current story so far as we know, so why are we finding this out now?
I don't know.
Like, just...
Also, the guy's wife shot him because she drank? That's a bit vague, isn't it?
I don't know. Why are we finding out all this about Irene's character now, when all this would have been good to set her up as a character before? I mean, with a better writer, of course, but even so.
If my manner have changed in any way since our union, of it I am not aware, and fail to be persuaded of any existing difference, only what might be attributed to Lady Dilworth's sudden and unexpected removal from our midst, which occasioned me grief indeed. Oh my god. It behooves elderly men like you, he's only 40, to rule their wives with jealous supervision, especially if the latter tread on the fields of youth. Such is often fictitious and unfounded altogether, and should be treated with marked silence. I may here say I was mistress in a measure of my movement, whilst under the meek rule of Lady Dilworth, nor was I ever thwarted in any way from acting throughout her entire household as I best thought fit, and since I had taken upon me to hold the reins of similarity within these walls, I find they are much more difficult to manage. I more than once have given orders which were completely prohibited from being executed. By whom might I ask, and why? Taking everything into consideration, I am quite justified in acquainting you that instead of being the oppressor, I feel I am the oppressed. Relative to my affections, pray have those courted me in the past aught to do with the present existing state of affairs? I am fully persuaded to answer, nothing whatever. You speak of your snowy tufts appearing where once there dwelt locks of glossy jet. Well, I am convinced they never originated through me, and must surely have been threatening to appear before taking the step which links me with their origin. I now wish to retire, feeling greatly fatigued, and trusting our relations shall remain friendly and mutual, I bid thee good night. Oh my god. This is just... I don't know why we're being told about this whole petty argument. Because that's what this is. It's a petty argument. And somehow they're letting each other talk for minutes at a time.
Yeah, I'm frustrated with the way Amanda writes dialogue. It's like, no one
talks like that.
No one talks like that. It's like brief exchanges. Like, I don't know, I just... This is the kind of shit that you'd see in a play, like, before naturalistic dialogue became commonplace. Mm-hmm. Just people talking, like, bollocks for lines and lines and lines at a time.
But even like Shakespeare, you don't get this.
Yeah, there's, like, there's a level of back and forth between characters that feels... If not sounds naturalistic by our modern ears, certainly feels naturalistic.
Yeah. And it can be acted in a way that is natural. This is just incredible.
There's no excuse for this.
This is the best thing ever. Lady Dunford swept out of the room and, hurrying to her own apartment, burst into an uncontrollable fit of grief. Why?
Because women are emotional.
She had surely been awakened from her reverie by Sir John, and felt sharply the sting of his remarks, which were truly applied indeed. She now resolved to let matters move along as quietly as possible, until after she should pass the most critical period of her existence. Which is... She was prepared to manifest her innocence throughout, without detection, if possible, but amongst the household there moved a matron under whose hawk-like eye Lady Dunford was almost inclined to shrink. She felt, when aboard her stealing she felt when in her presence to be facing an enemy of unbounded experience. She abhorred her stealing tread, but not without cause. It was to this dame she so often issued orders that never were carried out, and when intimating to Sir John the necessity of instantly dismissing such a tyrant, he quietly rebelled, adding that she had been almost 20 years in his service, and presently could not think of parting with such a valued and much trusted friend. This woman's name was Rachel Hyde, and improved the secret channel of intercourse between Sir John and Lady Dunfern, evidently paving the way for her ladyship's downfall, as Rachel, being mistress for such a period over Dunfern Mansion, could never step the fence leading to abolition of power, which she so unwillingly tried to mount since Sir John's marriage, and failing totally in her attempt, was lifted and thrown over by her mistress, an act she could never forget, and consequently carried all news, trivial and serious, concerning Lady Dunfern to her master, and delivered it in such an exaggerated form as to incur his wrath, which already had been slightly heated. What the fuck is she talking about? The abolition of power?
X of Y. X of Y.
I don't think that's what it is, though. I'm so confused.
She's really bad at organically introducing characters.
Yeah. A few months elapsed. Sorry, what?
Like, now we have this Rachel character to worry about, and I have no fucking clue what she is.
She's the maid. And she hates Irene because reasons.
Yeah, but she takes, 2 fucking paragraphs to say all that. Fuck's sake, Amanda.
Get your shit together, Amanda. A few months elapsed again, during which time matters went on much as usual, until an event happened that should have chased the darkest cloud of doubt and infidelity from the noble brow of the mighty and revered master of Dunfern Mansion. She just kisses his ass more and more and more and more as time goes on. It's incredible, how much, how highly she thinks of this protagonist. Anyway, that's chapter 8. The longer of the two. I'm just...
Thank God.
Yeah. I'm astounded at how so little can happen with so much space. Because...
Yeah, it's a lot... This is a lot of time for fucking nothing to happen.
All we've learned...
Aside from just a pointless argument that could have easily been avoided, the introduction of a character without any action on her part, and now we're told that more months passed with nothing fucking happening. That's how we end the chapter. Yeah. It's and nothing happened for a few months. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it all feels... like we're trying to wade through mud. It's because that all could have happened in a third of the space, and it would have been better. Because even that argument, which wasn't even a back and forth, it was one person talked, then the other person talked, and then that was it.
It was like they were writing letters to each other with their mouths.
Yeah, exactly. That is what it felt like. Because it's They don't bring up issues as they come up. They'll just say, here is my list of grievances. Well, here is my list of grievances. The end. And that's it.
And then she just kind of walks away.
And he doesn't try and get her back. He doesn't say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not done.
Well, to be fair, right? If someone had said all that shit to me, all in one go, and then just walked away, I would be a bit dumbfounded. I'd be like, what? My head would be spinning from so much bullshit.
I guess, but he had also spouted his own bullshit, so you have to assume a certain level of immunity.
He's a fragile man, He
Tuft.
can dish it out, but he can't take it.
Snowy Tuft.
He can dish it out, but he can't take it.
It's making his hair go white. The fact that his wife is not super affectionate towards him. Even though he considers himself to have bought her.
Yeah, he's not affectionate with her at all.
He's kind of an ass.
He's just, again, the problems he could have been avoided by, not being a dickhead.
Okay, chapter 9. The thickest stroke of sadness can be effaced in an instant, and substituted with deeper traces of joy. The heart of honest ages, though blackened at times with domestic troubles, rejoices when those troubles are surmounted with blessings which proclaim future happiness. That's some circular ass bullshit right there. That doesn't even make... Jesus.
It's like,
I'm
bad
dying,
things
Squirtle.
can happen. Bad things happen, but better things make things better.
I'm dying, Squirtle. This is shallow bullshit.
No, you're not dying.
I'm gonna die of bad writing.
Oh no. No. Who will finish the podcast? Who will edit this podcast if you die?
That's right. Okay.
Not fucking me, that's for sure.
It's not that hard.
Okay.
On the 10th day of June, following Lady Dunfern's interview with her husband, she gave birth to a son and heir. Whoa, what? So she was like a day away from giving birth, and he was like, come here, I need to yell at you. Pregnant wife. Wife who's so pregnant she's about to pop. We had no inkling whatsoever that she was with child at all.
No. I mean, it might have been hidden away in the pile of bullshit that preceded this chapter, but...
Also, wait a minute. They've only been married 6 months? Oh, no, it says a few months elapsed again, but... Oh, wait, no.
We've got no
Following.
time scale for this.
Alright, so this is just really poorly written. At first I thought it was, like, right afterwards, because it says following her interview with her husband, but no, this is a few months later. Okay, so there isn't a continuity error, it's just shitty writing. This great event brought with it entire forgiveness on the part of Sir John of his wife's recent conduct. It served for a short time only, a trivial portion too, to stifle the alienation which existed between them, and to heal the sore of evident separation that marred their happiness for months before.
Oh, is that all it took?
Yeah.
Giving birth to a fucking child.
Well, I think he's just like, oh, no wonder she was being a bitch. She was pregnant.
Oh, God, what a horrible thing to think.
I mean, that seems to be what was happening here, you know? He's just like, oh, you're being mean to me. You're not talking to me much. And then she has a baby, and he's like, oh, that's why. I thought you were just fat and mean.
It's a baby boy as well, so of course he's happy.
Because he's a fish baby.
Dickhead. He is a fish baby.
The glad and happy father was only too eager now to snatch a smile from his wife's face, and anxious was he to bury any little obstacle that may have existed in the past and expel it forever now from its lurking corner of tempting repose. He saw that Lady Dunfern's life was hanging by a flimsy hair, and who could, for an instant, depict the great despair of her husband when told that all hope must be abandoned. What the fuck is she talking about?
Hanging by a flimsy hair. What does
Is she
that
dying?
mean?
I mean, people just kind of die at random here, so... I don't know. We're only halfway through the book, so...
Snatch a wife from his smiles. No, snatch a smile from his wife's face. What a horrible
I know,
phrase.
like, does that mean he's trying to get her to smile, or just trying to make her stop smiling? Because that's terrible. The frantic father wrung his hands in a frenzy of momentary madness. That enough alliteration for you? And in spite of authoritative advice, he timidly moved in the direction of the bed on which his beloved lay, and knelt beside it to fervently offer up a prayer for the speedy recovery of her who was the chief object of his existence.
So she is sick.
Why does she talk like this?
Like,
raising himself up and clasping his darling in his arms, he whispered in her ear a word of encouragement, and gently laying her highly heated head on the silken pillow, he again prayed in deepest and gravest earnest that she might be spared only a little longer.
so she is dying.
I guess.
How?
Childbirth.
Oh, yeah, we had this conversation about Star Wars, didn't we?
Yeah. Because apparently Padme did not die because children, which I guess makes sense because space age, but the whole died of a broken heart thing's kind of bullshit. Like someone tried to justify that with broken heart syndrome, or that your heartstrings literally snap, and I'm like, that's not a thing.
So,
There
in
is
this
a thing
case,
called broken heart syndrome, but that's just stress that mimics a heart attack. Your tendons that connect to your heart, they do not snap unless they're being torn physically by something. So unless a very large creature grabs your heart in its hand, squeezes it, and pulls it out of your chest like some kind of Aztec high priest, your heartstrings aren't snapping anytime soon.
But in this case, Irene's just ill for
She's just ill.
no explained reason.
Yeah. No doubt his prayer was no sooner offered than answered, as she at this stage slightly rallied and appeared somewhat strengthened. Day by day, the still fond and loving husband sat by the bedside of the invalid until strong enough to battle fully against the weakening hand of her malady. And at the very time Sir John sat beside the bed of sickness, inwardly showering blame upon himself for hindering his wife's social enjoyment, and for which he believed he acted wrongly. Well, I would hope so he did.
Yeah, you dickhead.
She, on the contrary, was outwardly pouring rebuke on her own head for ever entering into a league of lifelong punishment by marrying a man she simply abhorred, and leaving her noble and well-learned tutor, Oscar Otwell, whom she loved, to wander in a world of blighted bliss. Blighted bliss?
It's, yeah, like, all things considered, blighted bliss is better than, dead, no parents.
I guess, but I don't know. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
Again, bad writing. I got no fucking clue, really and truly.
To be sure, it was during these days of unremitting attention that he was afforded an opportunity of storing up a multitude of touchy remarks uttered by his wife when the relapse of raging fever reached its defiant height. She never ceased to talk in a most gentle manner of Oscar Otwell, her darling and much-loved tutor. She even expressed sorrow at the course of her broken remarks, at the false step she had taken to satisfy not herself by any means, but Lady Dilworth. She strongly protested her hatred for him, who sat listening with grave intensity to every word that escaped her lips. She even spoke of a cavity in her jewel case in which she safely deposited a ring given to her by Oscar during her happy period of instruction under his guidance, adding in her painful discourse that she loved it as well as himself, etc., etc. What the fuck? So I guess being sick makes you just spill your guts.
Yeah, in
She's
this
got
world.
spill your guts disease.
That's what she was dying of.
That's what she's dying of, spill your guts disease. It's fatal to hands.
Hands don't got no guts.
Exactly, so you have to grow them to spill them out, and that's stressful on the frame. I don't know. I'm talking bullshit.
It's
These rambling sorry, what?
Squeezing out of the hand butt.
Yes. These rambling statements, when ended, in an instant caused Sir John's resolutions, made by him so recently, to become worthless remarks, and if partly charged with jealousy before, he was doubly so now. No onlooker could fail in the least to pity the sneered husband, whose livid countenance during the course of her remarks, rambling though they were, was a sight never to be forgotten. How he gazed with astonished indifference at the invalid so charged with deceit, she who acted the emblem of innocence at all times, and attempted to attach entire blame to her husband, she who partly promised peace in future to him who never again could enjoy it. How his manner became so abrupt and his speech so scanty within such a short period was verily a proof of the belief he fostered relative to his wife's statements, which were yet to her unknown. So she doesn't even know she's saying them? What kind of... This is stupid.
It's probably talking in a fever sleep or whatever. I don't know.
Maybe, but people don't usually have whole sentences when they speak during their fever dreams. They'll say things like, of course I killed the banana. I'm no fool.
Yeah. Well, we've already established that, Amanda McKittrick-Ross has a very tenuous grasp on reality, so this is just another facet of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had fever dreams before. They're weird.
She's taking an awful lot of time to just say, oh, she talked about her tutor again. And all the stuff that she really likes him. And then Johnny Boy was sad and upset again because he is a prick. Yeah. It's like, how, we're hearing this over 3-4 paragraphs now?
Yeah.
Anyway.
The doctors in attendance endeavoured strongly to imprint upon Sir John the fact that such remarks as those uttered by his wife should be treated with silence and downright indifference, adding that patients smitten with fever, of what kind soever, were no more responsible for their sayings than the most outrageous victim to insanity. Sir John listened attentively to their statements, but failed to be altogether convinced as to their truth. Wondering what sin could be attached to an act he felt was his duty to perform, he moved softly to the bedside of his wife, and being in a very sleepy mood, he resolved to sift some of her remarks to the very bottom. Entering the room she so often occupied, and taking from a chink in her dressing table a key of admittance to the jewel case she spoke of, he lost no time in viewing its valuable contents, and in a very spot in which she vowed dwelt her tutor's gift, there it lay, a golden band with pearl center, and immediately underneath it there rested a note. At first he felt rather diffident about perusing its contents, but instinct so prompted his curiosity that he yielded to its tempting touch. It ran thus. Headley, Berks, July 3rd. Ever-beloved Irene, I am after reading your gentle yet sorrowful epistle. You cannot possibly retract the step you so publicly have taken without incurring the malice of Lord and Lady Dilworth, who have sheltered you from every sorrow and care with which you otherwise were bound to come in contact. They received you into their elegant home and shielded you, by so doing, from the tyrannical rule of Miss Lamont of the orphanage. The orphanage, by the way, is in quotes, and it's capitalized. Of the orphanage, in which you were placed over a period of 8 years. They failed not to give you a thorough and practical education, which in itself would enable you to achieve independence, if necessary or so desired. This you received under one whose heart now beats with raging jealousy and vehement hatred towards the object of Lady Dilworth's choice, being well convinced, through your numerous letters to me lately, that it will never be yours. Dearest Irene, the thought of parting from you forever is partly sustained with the hopes of yet calling you mine. Through time, you suggest an elopement, which as yet can only be viewed in the hazy distance, but it seems quite clear to me, dearest, and surely evident, that you abhor the very name of him who a month hence shall place you in a position considerably more elevated and lucrative than that which I now could bestow. But Irene, my beloved, my all, reluctantly I yield my precious treasure to him who, it may be this moment, is rejoicing at his capture. I shall ever remain forlorn, dejected, and ruined until such time as we suitably can accomplish the clearance of the cloud of dissatisfaction under which you are about to live. Please write by return. Ever your own, Oscar. Miss Iddesleigh, Dilworth Castle. Oh, God!
And that's the end of chapter 9.
That is the end of chapter 9, though. Thank God. That's my favorite part of the chapter, is when it ended.
It's just...
Everybody has the same voice in this.
Yeah. No one has a distinctive identity.
No.
We have very basic personality traits ascribed to, the principal cast, I guess, maybe.
Kind of.
But all of the dialogue is written in exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm. All the letters and
Poorly.
everything. She has no sense of voice or style whatsoever. Also,
No.
she keeps doing that whole, she who would blah, 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 blah. And I hate that turn of phrase. I'm really starting to loathe it. And it's, Amanda McKittrick-Ross is probably the only person I've ever seen who actually uses it. No one else talks like that except for her. So it's a very distinctive stylistic decision that, perhaps she thought it made her sound smart. Maybe? I don't know.
Did you understand the letter at the end of the chapter?
Yeah. It was clear enough. It was just bad. It was rambling and obnoxious.
So this is a recent letter from Oscar.
Yeah. Also, this is this is something that's it really does feel like something out of the room, because it's the perfect smoking gun. This letter, it mentions elopement. It mentions that, oh yeah, Lady Dilworth was the one who chose your husband for you. It mentions that they're in love. It mentions that they have a history. It mentions that they're, have plans for the future, that there's an affair going on. It's everything. Everything is proven by this letter, and it is so devoid of intrigue or suspense. It only tells us what we already knew. And I understand wanting to say, okay, well, here's the letter, but at the same time, it's and I get that Sir John has to have a reason to find out, since he's going to find out, but I feel like presenting the audience with redundant bouts of information is just pointless.
Yeah, at this point, at this point it makes no sense to have this confirmation, because we already know that there's shit going on in between Irene and Oscar. It's been put forth to us so many times at this point. Having this concrete this is, at best it's character building, at worst it's just unnecessary fluff.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like character building, though, I have to say. It just feels like fluff.
When everyone talks with the same voice, it is fluff.
Like, it feels downright impossible to really get a feel for what anybody is actually trying to do. I mean, you have a vague idea of intentions, of goals, but no sense of tactics. Because Irene's only tactic is to lie. Just lie a whole bunch. And there's no real reason for it. There's no, there's no sympathy behind it all. There's nothing. She almost just lies for the sake of lying in many cases. And at least before they get married. And afterwards, I get, alright, she's doing it because if he divorces her, then she's broke. But, I mean, they've had a son together now. And if he wants to divorce her, then unless they signed a prenuptial agreement, legally she could sue him for half his estate. So, I mean, hello? She wouldn't really be wrecked anymore. And also the fact that he's snooping through her shit because of a fever dream, kind of rude.
And also I love the fact that she's given birth, she's got a son. The son's just disposable in this chapter. Like,
yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, pregnant, had a thing, put it away.
Yeah,
no
baby?
No tender moments, between the thing. We're just told that it was a happy occasion until.
And he was so willing to forgive her, except not really. Because the second he heard anything that confirmed his suspicions that have been percolating underneath, he's like, I knew it! I fucking knew it! He's just the worst. He's the actual
Life is hard. Life is hard for John Dunfern.
Is it really? He's richer than God. I mean, come on. Just because he has snowy tufts, that doesn't mean his life is suddenly difficult.
Just because he suddenly looks like Santa Claus. Turned into Santa Claus in 6 months.
I love that. Like, his hair turned white in 6 months because of the stress of his wife not being perfect.
I bet it's not snowy tufts.
No?
I bet he says snowy tufts, but I bet it's just grey, like proper grey.
She said snowy tufts too.
Oh yeah, but I think she was mocking him. That's if I had any faith in Amanda McKittrick-Ross as a writer.
Yeah, I think once she describes something in a certain way, that's what it is. That's the only way they can describe it. Irene's snowy hands. She uses snowy. It's just say the word white. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfectly good word. Gets you a fair score in Scrabble.
Surprised she hasn't described eyes as orbs and shit. Things of that nature.
Well, we still have yet to... we're only halfway through the book.
Oh, we hit the halfway point.
Almost.
Shit.
Almost. 19 chapters. We finished 9 of them.
Wow.
So we're almost halfway through.
It's been a rocky road.
It's been a rough time, but, soon we'll have snowy tufts of our own. I can't get over that. It's one of those phrases. It's like finest pebble, It's just... I
was just imagining being at the beach and be like, yes, this is truly the finest pebble.
And it's like, how long does she spend describing Dunfern Mansion in chapter 1? Like, a page and a half or something. Just to talk about this house. We don't need to know what it looks like. It doesn't matter.
It's all this space to that could have been used on storytelling.
I'm pretty sure in the Harry Potter series, less relative space was used to describe Hogwarts, which was the setting of almost the entire series of 7 books.
Yeah,
well,
J.K. Rowling only described it when she needed to.
Yeah, in the first 4 books, there was probably less time spent just actually physically describing Hogwarts than, than in this book describing Dunfern Mansion, which is of far less consequence and which, relatively speaking, has been the setting for much less time. We spent half the book in Dilworth Castle, which is now defunct because the Dilworths are dead for some reason. Just out of nowhere. They ran out of money, they went traveling, and they died. All behind the scenes when we weren't looking.
It's like we've got very clear ties to Irene's character and her motivations and her feelings, and just no elaboration on them at all.
Yeah, no,
just
nothing.
Just like, oh, her parents are dead. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's pretty shitty, and it almost feels like the drama. It feels like the drama is just completely contrived out of nowhere.
That's
Like
the
she
entire
goes, you know
book,
what I
though.
should add on to it? You know what I should add on? Dead parents.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all ad-libbed. Like something out of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah, except shit.
Yeah, except shit. Because Whose Line was fucking gold. But this is not good. And because, see, unfortunately, we don't get a little Cirque du Soleil bear at the end of this chapter because the PDF that was on Project Gutenberg was taken down. I just got a 404 last time I tried to look it up, so I've been using just the text file. So we don't get little drawings at the end of each chapter anymore, which is really kind of breaking my heart a little bit.
And those were the best things.
Those were the best things. That little bear with his little rings. That was great.
We've got to suffer in
Where
silence.
is that bear now?
Yeah, I want to know how that bear's doing.
Yeah, how's that bear doing?
Yeah. What's his CV like? Can I hire him?
Give him a job.
Yeah,
Make him
yeah.
a co-host.
Well, we could...
All Sheena and Bear.
Yeah. That'd be a novelty.
Yeah. So, I think that's enough for this week, though.
It's enough bollocks.
That's enough bollocks for this week. Enough dignified wanks.
Oh. I just went, oh. Because you said wanks.
So that's enough dignified wanks for this week. This has been Holy Moses Take a Look, the podcast about terrible books. Be sure to check us out on YouTube, SoundCloud. Well, actually, we can't really do SoundCloud anymore because we've used all of our SoundCloud space.
And we are dirty cheapskates who don't want to put money into a premium account for this.
Yeah.
We don't
We
don't have that kind of money.
No. When we finish Irene Iddesleigh, I think I'm going to put together a Patreon for this podcast. But in the meantime, if you want to support us in what we do, you can actually put that towards my Patreon, which I primarily use for artwork, but I have been publishing information about the podcast on there as well. And, of course, you'll gain access to all kinds of Patreon exclusives and such. And the link for that will be in the description. And you can check us out on YouTube or on the Internet Archive, which is at archive.org. And I hope you have a great week. We'll be back next time with Chapter 10.